He went down. No. We were talking about Hoang Po. Oh, so we were talking about Hoang Po, a clear recognition that could be applied right this second, which is whatever can be perceived. So just look around the room, and probably your room is full of mirrors, so you can see yourself. Just look in one of those mirrors. You have a Zoom, and you're watching another Zoom of you watching the Zoom. That would be crazy. That's what they have. All right. So whatever can be perceived. So we look around the room. Okay. All right. Just do a little bit, 10 seconds, whatever can be perceived. Just like a Course in Miracle lesson. Whatever can be perceived. All right. Cannot be perceiving. All right. So you'd have to admit, in the perceiving of something, there must be something called perceiving. Not necessarily a perceiver, yeah, but perceiving. Not even necessarily perceived, just perceiving, yeah. And then seemingly after the perceiving, there is what? There is the perceived. Let's give it that. So there's perceiving, and then there's the perceived, okay? It could have stopped there. But then what happens is that there's a third aspect of the Trinity, which is the perceiver. So the event here is perceiving perceived. Yes, that's what triggers the interpretation of life, right? There's perceiving, but there's something to, or there would just be perceiving ad infinitum, so to speak. There would be perceiving that would never trigger anything because it wouldn't run into anything to be perceived. Yeah. So there's perceiving, and then it bumps into something, an appearance, and that's the perceived. Yeah. Perceiving, perceived. Pretty good, pretty clear. Then what happens? There's the arising of the perceiver. Yeah. But obviously, the perceiver doesn't arise before the perceiving and the perceived. Yes. So just looking at it in a linear way, there's perceiving, perceived, and then the perceiver is the third. But the perceiver is presupposed to be the one that's perceiving. You see it? It's trippy. So this is the whole, that like mathematical formula the Ramana use, I feel, which is there's this presupposing of, let's say, the perceived. Yeah. Now thinks it's perceiving and want to get salvation from what it's perceiving, let's say. And then it sets out a course to get detached from what it's perceiving through spiritual practices, yeah, to have salvation from what it's perceiving. Yeah. Okay. Well, then the spiritual practices themselves that are being used by that which thinks it's perceiving is actually reinforcing the idea of the perceiver. How can they destroy it if they're reinforcing it? Yeah. So perceiving, perceived, fine, that's cool. Then what comes after the perceiving and the perceived in time is the perceiver. Where does the mental clock start? It starts as the perceiver. Thing, and then it goes into all the perceiving and the perceived, and it shouldn't have been perceived, and blah, blah. But its time starts at the perceiver, which happened later in time. Right. So later in time, the perceiver arises. It doesn't even arise. There's no perceiver. It's an idea. So an idea arises after the perceiving and the perceived, and then it says that there must have been a perceiver, or let's say the doer and the done must have been a doer. The hearer and the heard must have been a hearer. The hearing and the heard. Yes, it does it with all, not just perceiving, but perceiving how we meet things through the other 5 gates, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. So conscious contact, BAMO, there's perceiving, and then there's the perceived. Now we can, you can question that as long as you want, but here there seems to be that's the trigger, right? perceiving runs into something, perceives it, and then opinions and shit happen and reactions. Yeah. But how are those reactions and opinions, how are they presented as the perceiver? So there's perceiver, there's perceiving, perceived, the mental reaction, and out of the mental reaction, so what's being perceived and the perceiving of it comes this idea with all these opinions and everything as being the perceiver. So now, which is very economical, the perceiver, which can't reinforce itself, because it's just an idea, yeah? An idea needs to be like thought about, yeah? It's an idea, but the claiming of the perceiving and the perceived being that which was perceived by the perceiver, yeah? Yeah? The claiming of that just reinforces that which comes after to be the before. So in the mental world of time, that which is after, which is the perceiver, is before. It's just lurking there, ready to perceive, because it's the perceiver. It's ready to hear because it's the hearer, ready to feel because it's the feeler, ready to think because it's the thinker. Even though it couldn't make a description of thinking or hearing or feeling if its life depended on it. It wouldn't be able to say how it does all this shit because it doesn't do any of the shit. It's just it's like an emblem. It makes up a car, sticks on the emblem, and says the emblem was before the car. So there was a Ford before there was a Ford. So if there's an interest and intention, it tends to go that way. It gets sucked up into the head or the mental sphere. In that sphere, time is used to play tricks because the presentation of time is that there's a past, a present, and a future. And the past is done and it's moving through the present and it's going towards the future. It's like a linear movement. Yes? Yeah. So with us as the cow animal, as the herd animal, and we're being herded, let's say, it says the trough is there, you're here, you're going to go straight to the trough. That's all you need to know. And then we'll milk you and kill you later. so just, you got all the information, there's the trough. It's not going to be back there, you just go there. Okay, so what could be the easiest thing to do is fool something that believes time is linear by mixing up what comes after is before. It's a pretty good move. Because now every time there's conscious contact, it uses that conscious contact to imply that there's a someone who is conscious and who's having that contact, which makes what happen? An incredible unconsciousness to the fact that that is not what's conscious. Yeah. So it claims the conscious contact to reinforce that the story that it's the one that's seeing and doing, and I'm actually the one who's conscious. So when I think of consciousness, it's usually preceded Paul is conscious. So Paul was unconscious, or Paul wants to be more conscious, as if Paul has anything to do with consciousness, literally. so yes, that comes after. That says it's before. Yeah. And so now everything comes after, that it comes after now is used for the same determination to imply the before. Yeah. So selfing occurs, people call me up and go, man, that idea of selfing is incredible. And I just want to report in, I've been selfing all day. No, that's not seeing selfing clearly because you've now swallowed the product and now you're coughing it up about the top selfing. You missed the whole point. Or I got it, man. That's an amazing thing of selfing, and it's been driving me crazy with that. No, they're not that which is driven crazy by self. That would be what you would call the self. And you're not that which is doing the selfing. That would be that which is called the self. Or would be, you can use the same thing with perceiving and perceiving, same. So there is an event that happens, and then there's then something else arises in time and turns that event into an interpretation, really. Yeah. So you know what happened when you were younger? You were putting dirt in your mouth, fucking smelling everything. You didn't, like when you farted, you didn't, feel like, it was, everything was just fucking natural, shitting in the pants, nothing didn't matter. And then the brain developed, and you started getting self-aware, which is not awareness. Self-aware is the use of awareness, but there's not a self that's aware. There's an unawareness of self that makes self-awareness a topic. If there's an unawareness of the manufacturing of self, you may be really interested in self becoming aware. But it's the awareness of self. So now in this college, the before is before and the after is the after. So now what we are is the seeing of what we're not, literally. And what is the seeing of what not? That has implied and inferred and insinuated there's a noun, a doer of all the doing, a thinker of all the thinking, and a feeler of all the feelings, yes? You are now placed in a lofty position of the noun, never getting your feet wet unless you dive into the verbing when you're fucking part and parcel of that river of verbing. There's no noun to be found. It's just made up, yeah? And it leads us to seek to want to be wet when we're drenched, yes? Like the old Zen thing, which is, there's the guy standing by the river selling water. So it's pretty funny, yeah? You would think. But maybe if you're only looking down and everything's about you, you would see the water stand, but not the river. So you'd be, hey, how much is for, and there's the river. It could. That would be a myopic view, but it could serve that shrinking down of possibility. Oh, I've got to buy the water. So, all right, it's funnier, which is I'm a man standing in the river selling water. And now you got no fucking excuse. You're wet as hell and you're still buying water. It's past the standing by the river. They're in the river selling water. And when I heard that, that's the last time I ever went to see that guy. Not because of the guy, he saved me a lot of time. I realized, man, I'm fucking drenched. He's drenched. Why am I buying water? So there you go. Yeah. And of course, once you hit that point, you're wet. And the funny thing is, when life tells you you're wet, it also can inform you if you've always been wet. So it's not like, wow, I had this incredibly strange phenomena. I felt wet. No, you've always been wet. Feeling it or not, you're in water. You may think you may have a suit that's blocking it off, but you're in water. Yeah, completely. That's the point. All the head yapping that you're always going to be this way is a result of tons of yapping. When you hit in what is always going to be that way, it doesn't say much. You just get an overriding negation of everything by it says it's always going to be this way. So you hit that wetness and it's like, it's always been this way. It always will be this way. And therefore you have somewhat of an understanding or an immunity. Maybe it's just growing, but of a factual recognition in all this appearance of what seems to be a true or not to be true for you. Yeah, which is dreaming. Yes. So in a seeming reality would impose its will on you. Yeah, even if you try to give it a different meaning, it would inevitably pose its will on you. But in dreaming, because everything is empty, we give it all the meaning it has, which is just incredible definition of dreaming, which is from lesson 2 in the Course in Miracles. You and I are giving everything all the meaning it has. That could not happen in a real place. Because in a real place, if there was real things, they'd all have a meaning and they would impose their meaning on you sometimes. Yeah, if they were stronger than you, and you'd be able to impose your meaning on them if they were weaker than you. Yes. But here in dreaming, nothing is real. So everything is appearing to be true or not to us based on what? Our condition, not on that appearance condition. Yeah. you see that in this game of life, you put yourself in a losing position when you give things the power to affect you. The Course in Miracles, once again, not that I'm a Course in Miracle person, I just, a number of things I constantly keep using really set off avalanches in me, and a lot of it was explained by a sentence or two. And one of the sentences that did it was, hey, you and I are dreaming. This dreaming, yeah, we forget that we're dreaming. Wow, that's incredible. I would say that's a part of the dreaming, that which is dreaming forgets that it's dreaming, and voila, takes it to be the dreamt. Here you go. Yeah, you would have to say a body would be a dreamt. Yeah, so whatever can be perceived, a body cannot be perceiving. So the body is not the dreaming; it's the dreamt. If you follow Huang Po's logic, this is not the dreaming, it's the dreamt. So here we are, that which is dreaming us gives everything, we're giving everything all the meaning it has. And what happens, we forget that. And now everything we're giving meaning to, we give it the meaning to be able to affect us as the dreamt. Sounds like your day, doesn't it? So, yeah. You have thoughts, you have them, they have you. Feelings, I'm having a feeling, it has you.
So if the tiger jumps out of the bush, what do I do? Do I run or not?
It matters how high the bush is. Or where you are related to the bush. If you're watching it come out of a bush on a nature show and you're in your living room, I wouldn't do much. Yeah, but if you're right there 2 feet away and it seems real as real, why not? I don't know. I don't know what you do. I would offer it the bad leg, something that is less needed within more aspects of your primary body. Here, take this, like a little toothpick. It wouldn't work.
Giving it all me in the past.
Yes.
I mean, it's such a
well, yeah. Well, as I remember, I was speaking in San Jose, and these people were going, and I was like right here, and they were right there. And they said, "Are you afraid of a shark?" And I look around, I said, "No." Because I have a knowledge that they haven't learned how to come on land yet. So I feel pretty chill out about a shark based on that knowledge. Yeah. But if I was the water, I don't know what I'd feel like. I probably would be. See, this is the knowledge we're talking about. Yeah. That knowledge I had of a shark, yeah, no matter what you tell, how voracious, how fucking everything, it'll rip you apart. As long as I know it can't go on land, it's not going to upset me. Yes? So that knowledge, yeah, about a shark, not about me, about a shark, is that I know they haven't gotten legs yet. It's like the movie The Blob. Remember the original movie? It was a terrible movie because the blob could only move like 1/8 of an inch every 3 hours. So people are like, oh, the blob, and then they have a picnic. What are you going to wear when the blob finally arrived? I mean, it couldn't scare anyone because everyone knew it moved like a glacier. Whoa, the blob. Yes, so it just took out all the scare out of it. So the next time it sped up. It was like energetic jello. it could leave. So the same thing with this message. Hopefully, this message, because there's a large imagery basis of fact that you can land on, instead of the false evidence constantly appearing real. Yeah. And so you hear this message, like just simple, like Huang Po. Whatever can be perceived cannot be perceiving. Pretty swift message. Because if you have that sense, and then you go up to the head, which is presenting a story, its whole theme is completely opposite than that. Its theme is what's perceiving is the perceived. Because what I think about is the perceived. What I feel things about is the perceived. And reason why I'm giving it so much meaning isn't because it's the perceived. I believe it's the perceiving. Yeah. I believe what I'm really captured as is a subjective event, which is it's trying to say it's the perceiving. but it's identified with an object. Yeah. And you can realize it isn't you so much that it's obsessed over, it's the you, the subjective you. Yeah. So whatever can be perceiving cannot be that which can be perceived. So here you go. So you hear a message and then you see the opposite of it playing on your radio station. And then after a while, you hear enough messages, and what comes into question is K-Paul. And then you realize K-Paul is just an auxiliary of a franchise called Unclear Channel that most people are listening to all day. And I'm not Paul. Yeah. What happens? There's a loss of interest. This is what happens. You don't have to pull it out. It moves, it migrates. Just like this week, probably, where I used to live, when we used to live in the lagoon, these black and white ducks come and they sit around late November and they're there for a few months. And as soon as it gets a little warmer, they all leave and another species of animals come and check up. Yeah. So here, the interest is mostly being driven to all this activity because it's implied to be you. Yes. And when you see that it's not you, it's going to move. And how you're being enriched or not enriched by the attention and interest of your day, you'll be able to determine what's going on after a while, because I bet you're going to feel enriched by this interest and attention moving away from this preoccupation. And then you're going to really recognize the enslavement you're in, constantly up the ass of that self. You're going to know the difference. You're not going to know the difference without a difference. If that's all you're getting, that's all you think you're getting. But when there's an introduction to something else, you may not be that. And now, instead of being suspicious of everybody and everything, you're starting to be healthily suspicious about what's going on. There's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a rude awakening. And then you're going to realize, everything gets explained, because why you could never get out of this idea is because you're not in it to begin with. That was what you missed. And the reason why you can't get into something, you've never been out of it. That's why you can't get into being you. You are being. So what you can't get into becomes super clear, and what you can't get out of becomes super clear. And like the bizarro world just flips. It really does. It does. And when it flips, it never actually flipped. You just were seeing it a certain way. It's always been this way. You were seeing it in the dreaming this way. And then, truth be told, you saw it. And when you see it, it doesn't like, it changed on November 4th. No, it didn't. It's never changed. That's what comes to you. It's never changed. I was just seeing things. I wasn't. There was a seeing things differently. That was corrected. And the correction disappears because there was no need for a correction. It never had been changed. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it, after all these bets you put on things, you finally, your bet landed on the right number. You win the roulette game, the black 39, you got it. Just keep betting. And no matter how many times it's 800 rotations, 7 rotations, they paint the difference, you win because you're onto something. Can you imagine that which can make shit out of nothing, put on that which is everything? Yeah, powerful. Yeah, it's powerful. If you matched your conjuring ability, because many of us are making shit out of nothing all day, which is a fucking miracle. I mean, really, if you look at that guy with Jesus, Lazarus, he was raised from the dead, but he hadn't alive once. And they say that was his greatest miracle. We're making shit out of nothing all day. Really. People are ruining their Saturdays left and right, up and down this fucking corridor. Some of the richest counties in the world, they're fucking flipped out. They don't like their intestinal interior anymore or something. Yeah. I mean, seriously. So can you imagine that power? Look at what it's doing. I mean, it's making a lot of shit up. Can you imagine if it landed on something real? Finally, I mean, it would be an incredible power. Yeah, you would give up, relinquish all the making of shit, and you would just become in a revelatory stage. Yeah, you'd just be there and seeing actually the power clearly, not through this incredible fucking myopic lens, but yeah. So now, bammo, what happens? What happens is, in my view, that which is already established becomes a working modality here. So you're traveling lighter, you're awake to being awake, where before you may have thought you were asleep to being awake, but you'd really like to be awake. But the fact is, there's only awakeness. And then there's the seemingly not awake or awake that goes on. Could be the story of your life, but the fact of the life is awakeness. So it oozes in like very slowly poured molasses, a lot of knowledge. And some of it is basically you're incessantly on, and there doesn't seem to, I don't have an origin story where I switched. I don't remember any time I switched something, because usually when there's an on, there's an off in this world, and there is no on or off in this. Yeah. And so you start sensing these things. You can't really wrap them in thought, but there's a sense of it, and it allows a traveling lighter, whatever life has in store for you. And instead of when you get a big synopsis of you and all your character defects and selfishness and shit like that, there's not a going to arms to try to change that. You see you're not that. And you also see you're not that which is saying it's seeing you're not that.
Then you get worse.
No, it does. Then it negates. You finally have the active ingredient of non-duality is the negation of duality. That's the active ingredient. There's no active ingredient in non-duality. It's not a place. It's not a world. It's not a thing. Yeah. But the active ingredient of it is negation of duality. Well, you see, you're not the object that's just your girlfriend just did a beautiful description of, and it's starting to really hurt you because you're selfish and you're inconsiderate and you're fucking this, fucking that. And then that reaction, oh, all right, I finally tell the truth. Okay, I am that. And of course I'm going to try better. No, you see, you're not that either. Yes, boom, and then fucking it's great. It works. It works, really. And you probably, who knows, you lose interest in being less self-centeredness, and that's obviously provokes less self-centeredness. When you lose interest in not being so self-centered, that's loss of self-centeredness. You don't see it. Yeah, it's not like you being interested in losing self-centeredness is not the loss of self-centeredness. That's an example of self-centeredness. So you lose the interest in it, and finally, it's not even necessary if you change or not. You get good at making amends. You know what I mean? If you just keep stepping on people's toes.
I'm not a bad guy.
No, you're not a bad guy. And you wouldn't have been a good guy if you carved the puppy. Yeah? Yeah, you're something big question under there. And then your head would love to be a good or bad person. Because it's already won, it has you as a person. So now the act of perceiving all day, you would think would be the obvious remembrance of what you are, has been neutered by the claiming of being the perceiver. So the perceiving would probably reinforce that which is perceiving. While perceiving was going on, the going on of the perceiving would reinforce perceiving. Yeah, but the head has claimed the constant perceiving of things to actually reinforce its idea that there's a perceiver. See, this is the trick. The I am is being used to fuel the story of I am Paul. Where do you think you get the sense of Paul? The sense of Paul is misinterpreted sense of I am. We're misinterpreting the sense of presence, which is I am, and we're calling it Paul. And in the head, the last place we want to be is present with Paul. So we want to put on Die Hard 12, do this, eat copious fucking 20 shots of fucking energy, whatever. You want to get out of the presence of Paul. That's what my tribe was. And the point is, the presence you'd wanted to get into was that which has never left. It was just the removal of the importance of Paul. And that removal of the importance of Paul reinforces an importance of I am. Yeah. And the I am, if you're looking for anything reliable, it's the most reliable thing. And when it becomes unreliable, you won't be there to know it, because you will have passed away. When the I am not shows, you're not going to have, there's no bitching commentary. The radio Paul's going silent. That's the real plug. Want to see something, Paul? You think you're going to continue? The voice box. I can't, there's no more dialogue. The body's dead. I thought I was going to fly to another. No, it doesn't go that way. So I am presence. I am Paul. The drag on the responsibility that presence is seen as. Yes? And especially if, let's say, if you have 4 kids present in your presence, yeah, or yeah, whatever, so much shit can occur in the mental state, yeah. But if the idea of Paul surrendering to the I am is an act of an already surrendered to Paul, yeah. One of the last acts you arrive at as Paul not surrendered is Paul trying to surrender. But it's looked as a transactional deal. I'm going to surrender, but I got to get that 5'10" blonde or whatever. I'm going to surrender, it's all business. But see? Yeah. So that, the idea of Paul is what surrendered, really. And because there is no Paul, that surrender can turn into surrendered here. Because you don't have to keep surrendering an imaginary object. Yes? Maybe the first time you would turn it over because you thought it was real, but you would see it from the point of turning it over that it's not so. So you move into a state of surrendered. So Paul can constantly run into a state where it wants to surrender, only to take it back later because the shit's hitting the fan, but you've surrendered that idea, which is cool. Yes. And you can stay surrendered because it's like someone in recovery. I was at this meeting, and in recovery, there's a big thing about turning shit over because mostly you're managing all day, right? The head is. So they go, all right, what does it look like to you concerning turning it over? And I said, a habit. Because I've been turning it over for years in recovery. There's a point where you stop turning it over and it's turned over. It's not a constant turning, fucking it over. It runs out and a new basis gets formed, and that basis is it's turned over. So now you're in the habit of turning it over, and that means there's no thought concerning that act of turning it over. See, the habit is an action without thought. So you're in the habit of living a turned over life. Because why? You did it seemingly for years. It doesn't stay stagnant. It's not like something changes. You just don't keep, you know what I mean? If you do a makeover, it's got to be made over sooner or later. You may not like it when you see them in Whole Foods turning in aisle 4 and they've got terrible plastic surgery, but it's too late. The makeover is over. You're sort of stuck with it now. So this is the beauty of it. Yeah. This is a simple suggestion and invitation. I humbly believe why it only needs to stay that way is because it's based on a truth. Yeah. Which most other shit is based on arriving at a truth or telling the truth about you've departed from a truth. We're just saying, I believe this is the truth, and it doesn't need much. Yeah, and it's right there. It's like that if I am had a cloud formation, it would be this knowing. Yeah. And when satsang brings you from here to here, then that you're on that knowing. Once you hear a statement like you cannot use the Buddha to seek the Buddha, it sounds like an intimate portrayal of your activity. Yeah, when you hear self can't get out of self, you feel like you've been caught on tape for 30 years because that's exactly what was going on. Yes, it has that power, such a sufficient. It's not like a closing and opening and a closing of a door. It's a closed door. Yeah, there's a being convinced it's over. Like I think Ramana was implying it where it says your head is already in the tiger's mouth. So you're thinking you have this big option, it's already, the process is set in motion. The next vision you're gonna have is out the tiger's ass when you come out. So just go along with the ride. Because you're not turning around. Yeah, that's what I feel it's like. You've heard enough, and then something, it's like a camel that breaks the straw that breaks the camel back. That straw may not have been the heaviest straw. It doesn't matter. It could be the lightest straw, but it's the one that's going to break the camel's back. Yeah, you got a whole bushel of straw on you already. Yeah, and actually, it's already occurred. Most people, there's just been a denial of it. So most people who are moving to try to get to awake, they're actually trying to get away from being awakeness. Really. So and the beauty of it in the end is that that's where failure is the greatest success, like the Course in Miracles says. Your greatest failures are your greatest successes. Your greatest successes are your greatest failures. Because when you fail in the finding of what you already are, that's the value of it. Because you'll stop looking and then you'll realize I am what I'm looking for. Not by looking for it, only by the exhaustion coming from looking for it for so long, it finally collapses like that straw, and you finally see you are what you're looking for. Yes? There's not just an awareness of it, there's a knowledge of it, there's a knowing of it. And the knowing is going to be probably more valuable in time than that seeing of it in that moment. The knowing of it is going to travel lighter here. Yeah. The knowing of the I am being before I am Paul. And then you realize Paul is I was Paul and I will be Paul. Therefore, I am Paul. The idea of Paul being the I am is arrived at in time. It doesn't grow out of it. It arrives there in time, which is I was Paul. I'm gonna be Paul. Therefore, I am Paul. And the verification that is the presence of I am. You feel a presence and your head says that's the feeling of Paul, which it isn't. Because there's no generation of the feeling that you would give the name Paul to, other than the I am. So, boom, you go there, and then Paul becomes a caricature like he's always been. You'll find a lot more humor than most people will. I mean, Amelia doesn't want to hear any of my jokes anymore. But I've been listening to them for 20, 30 years. I think they're pretty good. Sometimes I torture a rapt audience in the Zoom or live, and they have to put up with it. But to me, I used to really listen to it like CNN. It wasn't good taking it to be a news channel. It didn't lead to good conclusions. So it turned completely around, made it into Comedy Central, has worked without changing the setting or anyone. Says this, the MC is the same, Paul. It's just hilarious. So, all right. Anyone here? No one wants to ask anything.
I do.
You do? All right.
All right.
This is the last time. You have to do that in Zoom. The only way I answer a question has to come through Zoom. All right, no, it's okay.
Okay, so the idea of making a list of difficulties about who I am and then looking at them with a person and making amends for them, that seems like a way of self and keeping me right in self, like berating myself and finding fault with my past behavior. And
that's why you do it. So you can see self try to take advantage of it. And the grace of what you are will override that. So just do it. And you'll see the head will easily try to claim to be the one that's gone over and the one that's doing the going over, and you do it anyway. And you see that with this understanding. So you get your buck. You see both. You do what the action figure needs to do, which is take responsibility for what's happened in their life. Yeah. And then you also got the non-duality, the relief before all forgiveness, because nothing ever really happens. So not a bad deal.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yes, that's how I would do it. Now the head would like to do it with there is no Paul. I'm not going to review anything about Paul. We just reinforce Paul. No. Everything that's reinforced will be used for something else. Yes. It will reveal Paul and bring more of Paul up out of the weeds, so you'll see what you're not. Yes, yes. That's been my experience with it. Yeah. Ramana has this in a lot. If you run into, he says it doesn't make any sense, but that's just how it is. He describes a lot about things, like when he used to tell a lot of people to surrender, and then he go, well, who's there to surrender and to whom? And he said, well, fucking try to live that then. But the way I'm viewing you, the way you do best is the surrender, because you're outmatched right now. And life's daily situations overwhelming you. Why not, hey, surrender to something greater than you, and thy will be done, or as thy will it is, whatever. That will probably work better than try to say that there is no you and you're absolutely not have nothing to do with this, because it's the you that's saying it. You know what I mean? The you is the first one who wants to say it's not you. But its agenda is different. It wants to get out of something or wants to get into something as that you. This is typical. You can watch when someone hears non-duality and their recovery. You can know in about a week what kind of calls you're going to get from them. Well, obviously, how can I be an alcoholic? I'm not a self. What? You want to know what I'm doing right now? I'm having a big 16 tall boy, 16 tall ball, and I'm now they're fucking drunk absolutists. Do what you feel you need to do. Let go of the results, or admit that you can't let go of the results. And see that which wants to let go of the results aren't you. This is what worked with me the best, because the secondary call to arms after realizing the first line of defense has been broken, right, was so overwhelming. I just denied the first line of defense is broken. Yes, because I knew I didn't have the wherewithal to change this shit. And so the great message of non-duality, you're neither of those. You're not that observation that's filled with an interpretation, and you're not the reaction to that. Yeah, that's where I found relief, is taking another step back that hadn't been introduced to me on this game board or this dance floor until I was introduced to non-duality. Non-duality informed me there was another step back that I didn't know. I thought the real me was the one that was reacting to the false me. I did. I thought, all right, I had enough of false me, but now I'm seeing it. And now I'm going to vow never to blah, 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 blah. And I saw that didn't fucking work. Yes. That which was the subject is seen suddenly as an object. That which is now the subject is the same thing. It's a self. It's selfing. Yes. I didn't know that. I thought that which saw that which had defeated me as an object was my real subjectivity. I did. I thought this was the untarnished clarity of all clarities, and I was sorely mistaken. This is the idea of non-duality. The objectification of self being used to disguise the subjectification of selfing doesn't work. Yeah, you need to see both. And this is what non-duality gave me. Non-duality said, Paul, you can take another step back and now tell me how you see it. And when I took another step back, that which was implying it was behind the camera, I saw in front of the camera. So now I saw the object of self and I saw the subject of self, both on that side of the camera from what's behind the camera, which I don't call anything. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't bark out a name. Know me by this. I don't hear any of that. I saw that subject of self that suddenly became an object when I seemingly became self-aware. And self-aware is some of the subject of selfing is seen as an object, but it's being seen as a claimed subject, which is an aspect of self. So that getting knowledge about me didn't bring a great relief and freedom. It brought me another form of bondage. Maybe the bracelets were gold, but they were still confining as the others. Yeah, and therefore I was open to hear other possibilities because the other possibilities seemed to be defined. They had limited effects because I was involved in them. And then non-duality is the way I heard it. That I heard that I saw that which I was a subjective person now was now an object going over by another higher level subjective person of both selves, both not me. And when I got there, I haven't had to go any farther. So I was in front of the camera, from behind the camera, and I know that which I have seen in front of the camera, or which is implied from what you see in front of the camera, is never, ever going to be behind the camera. Never was, never will be. You could see it almost as oil and water. That which is appearing there is not going to be here. Yes. Exactly as it appearing, no way. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what happened. I thought I was seeing it from behind the camera, but I wasn't. And it was obvious by, you know the tree by its fruits. There was a large amount of relief, but there wasn't relief. Relief still had to be done and shit like this. There wasn't a relief from all that need to be relieved and all that need to do this and all the need to do that. I hadn't gotten relief from that. And I was imprisoned by perfection now and words like awakening and enlightenment. It wasn't bringing a great joy. It was another job that I wasn't equipped to complete. Then I heard the message, I'm neither this nor that. And I don't need to listen to the policeman at the expense of the thief, and I don't need to listen to the thief at the expense of the policeman. I can lose interest in both of those narratives. And there's a silent one that can direct me. I didn't have any idea of that either. I thought it was either one or the other. Either I was going to be a good person or I was going to be a bad person. Either I was going to get really fucked up and do tons of shit, or I was going to be like a saint. Yeah, none of those shoes fit. The one shoe, you can't do the thief life as an extreme addict. It's just going to end in terrible consequences. I mean, it's not a long lasting. It's not a good bet for the long haul. Yeah. But you can avoid shit. I think you have a lot of fun and do this and do that, step on a lot of toes. But I was dreading the day the policeman returned because I hated that. And the policeman returned in the guise of recovery and then got to be the perfect meditator or fucking shit like this. And then so everything was a call to arms. And this was the first thing that just the war ended with non-duality. It was very disarming and I don't know how things will work with you, but it worked with me. That's why everything we say at these talks comes from what's happened and stuff. Yeah. I stopped reading other shits 20-something years ago because I wanted to be an independent bakery. Yeah. I mean, I can go off on metaphysical shit. I don't want to, because I just, you know, when you're in dog shit awareness, your height level's the curve, you know, keeps you humble. Very good. You didn't see much farther. You just, and the smell of shit's always there. It's good. It is, really. So, and something brought me to that point, and I don't think there's another point behind there. I just don't. Yeah. And if there is, I don't care. Yeah. What was the propulsion in this event was relief. I wanted relief. Obviously, when I would get relief, it came with a lot of trappings, a lot of unintended consequences. And this has brought about a relief, the relief from the need to be liberated, the relief from all the pressure of having to do something that you're ill-equipped to do. Yes, and just you know, just turning off the race, really. That's what I've actually, obviously, whatever story I had about Paul as a trajectory wasn't even close to truth. Paul is not going to do much if it's content and satisfied. It isn't. It's not going to, it's not looking, I don't want to go into the 11th dimension. I don't. Just chilled out. I could have been a circuit speaker. Yeah, but I don't care. I had a drive that went insanely far when misdirected. And now that drive being directed is presence. It doesn't want to go anywhere. Yeah, so yeah. And I'm pretty you know, compelled to share this because it's worked. Yeah, like the last answer. It's constantly disarming you, which is great because the head wants to regroup. It does. And you always have like it's like an automatic pulling out the rug from underneath it. It's great. Once it starts pontificating, just gets pulled out. It's great. Yeah. So it's working. So, and that I would just do the inventory with this understanding. This understanding doesn't free you from the needs of the action figure. If the action figure is captured by alcoholism, and you've been introduced to, let's say, a community or some other thing that's working, great. I was introduced to recovery community, and that's where I got what I needed to live a day at a time without causing a lot of fucking unintended consequences. Yes. I saw the power in this. Misdirected was like a fucking like, you know, once I started drinking, I realized I had incredible magnetism to people in uniform. I put out like a dog whistle, and I got arrested in some of the craziest ways you could never think that it would end up in arrest. And it just, something went off, and anyone in uniform started keying in. And then once they triangulated me, I was fucking arrested. I mean, unbelievable. It seemed like a fucking curse. Twice a week, you know, for 3 months, twice a week, nothing would happen the rest of the month, then twice in 1 week, and then twice in 1 week. Yeah, well, it did take the chip. Something took out the chip. That's what happened. I got struck sober. Took out the chip, that radioactive isotope. It did. And, you know, my solutions when it happened was I stopped going out. I'd go to my friends' houses and get high. And I had a little routine, stay off the streets as much as possible, because shit's going to happen on the streets. Then they raided my house, my brother's house. So that that solution didn't work. And then this other shit, it just went on and on. And the real solution was just don't get loaded, which was unimaginable based on that irritability, restless, discontent. It was my medicine. I would do anything and I'd pay any consequence tomorrow not to feel uncomfortable now. And I felt uncomfortable with this head. running around. I did. It's unbearable. Yeah, it really was. And I would do anything, and now I won't do anything at all. It's been a pretty strong opposite. You know, it is. So that's why I love the non-duality. It's the last answer for me.
Or maybe it's not the
opposite. Oh, of course it's not the opposite. In duality, it swings one way, the other way. That power that moves the water through that fire hose, and then you get hit by a hose of fire, you know, by firemen, has a huge amount of power, but what an amount of power of that water going through something else. So, like when it's matched with I am, it's instead of going through the hose of Paul, there's some there's juice there. Find solace there, peace. Yeah, all right. Anyone in Zoom? Can you hear me? We've been muted this whole time. He's turned into the unspoken one. No, I was just muted. All right. Nobody, Mike? We're going to say goodbye, I think.
No hands. Anybody want to wave their hands?
Mike.
I think they're waving goodbye.
That's good. That's good. Hey, Mike, did you put up that schedule from back east?
Not yet. I'll do it tonight.
All right, great. That would be great, bro. Thank you. All right, Kathleen. Nice to see you, honey. Yeah, I'll be seeing all of you before. So, as always, down in Brazil. Steve San Diego. Jesse from Ireland. Nice to see you, Jess. Anu.
You too. Hi.
There she is, Anu. Andre the Giant. Remember Andre the Giant, the wrestler? Yeah. Mike Clark. You know, I used to love Bruno Sammartino. Remember Bruno Sammartino? I asked Amelia's father. He was the world heavyweight champion wrestler when wrestling was somewhat real and not. Bruno Sammartino. Yeah, big old Speedo. He's great. So I talked to Amelia's father, and no one knows about Bruno Sammartino in Italy. Oh, well, he was the world champion here. But that name is always stuck in my head, Bruno Sammartino. They'd have all these weird dudes, and he would just come out with the Speedo, hairy as a fucking bear, just throwing people. And he took it seriously. He did. Well, whatever.
You've got people coming in from Europe that forgot about the time change.
Oh, did they? Oh, well.
Second sound good.
Go to Wikipedia and read the story of Bruno Sammartino. Walter's Italian in America, not known in Italy.
Walter just got here.
Oh, Walter, yeah. See, remember, the last were the first, and the first were the last. Yes, remember this. You didn't miss anything. Remember, I'm going to give you that parable, which I love. It's a very tricky one. I think I've got it clearer. There's a parable Jesus supposedly used where there's a farmer who's got his crops are coming in and he can't handle the work. So he goes to sort of like a union hall or wherever, and he hires this guy around 9 in the morning. He says, I'll pay you $50, work the whole day to 5. Yeah. I need help to harvest the crop. The guy's really happy to get a job. He doesn't have any money. So he goes, starts working. Around 11, the boss realizes he's going to need someone else. So he goes down to the work hall, the union hall, and says, hey, I'll give you $50. You got to work from 11 to 5. $50. All right. He hires that guy. And then at 1 o'clock, he realizes he needs another person. He goes to the hall. He says, hey, I need you to work till 5 o'clock, give you $50. So this guy gets at 1 o'clock to 5, he's going to get $50. Around 4 o'clock, he realizes he can't pull it off. So he gets it. Goes there, gets a guy, and he gives him $50 for working for an hour. So now the guys that have been there since 9, getting 50, are pissed off that this guy who just came is getting 50. But time doesn't fucking matter when we're talking about this message. It doesn't. Because when you seem to get it, it tells you you've always been it. So the idea of longing and you missing, and of course, it's all been producing a rarefied doer. And so you blew it, you left the Godhead, all this stuff. Yeah, it just disputes all that because it hits you and you know it's always been this way. It's never not been this way. You didn't work harder than the guy that came at 4. You didn't work lesser than the guy that came at 9. Because the hours of time don't mean shit concerning this freaking topic. Yeah. So you should have been here earlier. All right. Well, know what I would do? I would just hit play on this recording and you'll be here. You'll be like you're here an hour, just 1 hour difference.
So it's a spontaneous process, what you just described about the workers. It's a spontaneous process because it's once you get it, it was spontaneous, whether you started at 9, whether
yes. Well, it's not spontaneous because it's already set in stone. You are that which you're looking for. Okay. It's not like you're going to be that which you're looking for if you fill some requirements and do this. No, it's the basic invitation is you are already that.
Right.
So it's not if that is always that appeared in time, it would maybe appear spontaneously, yes. Yeah. But it's not a spontaneous appearance. It
was always
right. It's always here. But yeah.
Sometimes it feels like you were in a process.
Of course you do, because we're an action figure.
Right.
Yeah, we feel like there's something winded us up and we've been moving and we're proceeding to an end point. Yeah, so, and the funny thing is, even in our beginning as a body, we don't remember it. And you're not going to remember your death. Your parents told you what you were like when you were 6 months. You have no idea, do you? You could have been fucking with wolves. You could have been, and then you're worried about dying, but you're gonna be the only people who are going to experience your death are other people. You're not going to experience your death. So you didn't know, you didn't have no idea when you came in, and you're going to have no idea when you come out. What's that to say about all this middle part?
You don't even know if your memories right now of the past
That's
are
right.
They're just planted right now.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah. Except my memory of I want to have a latte.
Yeah.
That's planted in. Yeah. All right. So let me say goodbye to Kathleen, as always, Gio, Jesse, Anu, Mike Clark down in Mexico, Tariq. Hey, Tariq, you got to go November 14th. I'm going to be in Dover November 15th. Get out of there. Mia, nice Greece, I hope. Angie, I hope everything's worked out. Are you in Romania now?
I'm back home in Canada.
You're back home.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great. If we ever do another retreat, we're going to have medical insurance.
Medical care.
I'm so happy that happy that you were
medical
there.
Insurance.
We felt you every day. Yeah. Matt Julian, nice to see you, Matt. Wayne, pleasure. Rico, David Bitterman. Draw, D-R-O-R. I've met Draw before. Yes. Patrice.
Yes.
Yes. Christine Y. Sanjay. Miranda. Miranda. From the great state of Idaho. She's not from Idaho. Ilan. John K. Vlad. Vlad. We had a wonderful time, Vlad. Vlad gave up being gluten-free and ate these huge brioches dunked in granita, like iced gelato, every morning.
He did well?
Yeah, he did fine.
Wow.
Yeah. He had his stomach pumped when he got back to Portugal. When he got back to Portugal. Roman Murna. Roman, we made it, bro. We survived another retreat. Sherry, nice to see you, Sherry. Let me see. We got Dima, Matthew, Cassandra, Deborah from Alberta, Lee, California, Mika. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Mika. Just go into the Zoom room. I'll open it up before 12. Axel, nice to see Axel. I just saw Esther. She just appeared and disappeared. Hey, thank you, everyone. Hey, have a wonderful day. We'll be back Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. Yeah. Oh, there's Esther. Nice to see you, Esther. You're going to have to take a pilgrimage to Dover, New Jersey, Esther. November 17th and 18th. All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
You.